Hello, everyone, and welcome to Psychology 4440, the Psychology of Drugs and Behavior. I will be your instructor. My name is Dr. Damon Tomlin. I'm looking forward to the course. I hope you are as well. And so to begin, this is just sort of a welcome to you. And we're going to go over what the course is about, what my expectations are, how the course is laid out, what you'll need to be able to take the course. And so prepared a little presentation about the overview, not even about the content, just the overview of how the course will work. So this course is obviously about drugs and behavior, and so it's about the effects that drugs have on our bodies, on our lives, on our society. So we'll be looking at drugs and the phenomenon of drug use at a variety of scales. So we'll be looking at the smallest scale of individual neurons, those being brain cells. So in the coming weeks, we'll understand uh, some of how the brain functions, what its basic components are, and how drugs affect how the brain works. So we'll look at a very small scale, individual cells in our brains. Then we'll move on to the whole brain and the whole individual and how the individual is changed, how their behavior is changed through drug use. We'll also look at the effect that drugs have on society and that drug use has on society. And there are both positives and negatives, and we'll go over those. This course is designed to be very even-handed. We're not going to take a moral stance on drug use. We're just going to look at the phenomenon and look at both the positives and the negatives. And we'll even take a bigger view of drug use. In fact, this week we'll look at the history of drug use. For each of the modules in the course, we'll always have a little bit of history. We'll have the history of each individual drug as we come to it. But a lot of that history will be recent history in the US, often from around 1900 onward. However, this week we'll look at drugs in the ancient world, and also as history's progressed from the ancient world up almost to modern times. So we won't have a lot of overlap. We'll just go over how our perspective on drugs has changed and what our knowledge about drugs, how our knowledge about drugs has changed over the course of history. So this is sort of a mixture. So we have science, we're going to have a psychological component, obviously, and we'll have a historical component. So this is a very mixed approach for this particular course. So our objectives for this course. So as I mentioned, we want to understand the effects that individual drugs have on our bodies, our behavior, our society. And so this course is largely broken up by drugs or by groups of drugs. So we can understand each one, one at a time. We also want to understand how our society approaches drug use. So how our society tries to maximize the positive effects of drugs while minimizing the risks, the negative qualities of drug use. Sometimes not always so successfully, but society tries as best it can. So we'll talk about things like drug prevention programs, drug treatment programs. How do we deal with these negative consequences as they come to us? In sort of a broader perspective, this course is also about critical thinking skills. So we want to understand how drugs work, understand how they affect our lives. But again, we don't want to come in with preconceived notions about whether drugs are good or bad. As we'll see in the coming lectures, um, those terms can be misleading, and they often hide either the positive or the negative qualities that all drugs have. All drugs have good sides and bad sides. They have benefits and harms, and so what we want to do with this course is look at the history of drugs, understand how drugs work, what effects they produce, and understand both the positives and the negatives of those effects. So again, we want to come in and evaluate critically what drugs do, how they affect our lives as individuals and as a society. In terms of prerequisites for this course, technically there aren't any. So it is recommended but not required that you've taken Intro to Psychology. If you're worried about whether you have the right background for this course, please feel free to email me. We'll get to that in a second. But there really aren't any prerequisites. We will talk about some of the technology that you'll need later on, but in terms of course requirements, you don't need to have taken any particular course before this one. As I mentioned, I'm your instructor. My name is Damon Tomlin. I'm a lecturer in the psychology department. This is my email, dtomlin@uccs.edu. That is my preferred method of communication. So if you need to get a hold of me, please just send me an email. My office is in Columbine. It's on the 4th floor with the rest of psychology. It is Columbine 4028. My office hours, because this is an online course, my office hours are by appointment. So if you need to meet with me personally, please shoot me an email and we will find a time that works for both of us. Okay, the materials for this course. First, there's the syllabus. So if you're watching this video, obviously you've managed to get onto Blackboard. And the syllabus is also on the Blackboard page for this course. So you'll see it right here in the Blackboard main menu. So you can click on that and that will take you to a PDF of the syllabus. The syllabus, of course, contains content information, it contains course policies, contains the schedule, has lots of helpful information for how this course is structured. There's also your textbook. So the textbook is Hart and Cassier's Drug Society and Human Behavior. The newest edition is the 16th edition. So that is the one I'll be teaching from. That's the one I'll be using. So I've had a couple people ask me about the 15th edition. I don't actually own the 15th edition. I imagine that it is probably okay, but what you may want to do is find someone who has the 16th, compare the versions to make sure they're pretty close. Usually, by the time a book is in its 15th or 16th edition, the content is pretty well settled. But the syllabus uses the 16th edition chapters, so make sure those match up. And of course, you'll need to pay attention to lecture to make sure there's not any content that's in the lecture that isn't at least mentioned in your book. As we'll see, many of the lectures contain content that isn't in the textbook, but if there's a whole topic that isn't covered at all, and you're using the 15th edition, that suggests there may be a section that's in the 16th, not in the 15th. You may want to find the 16th edition and look through that part. Technology. So this is an online course. Technology is going to be important. So first you'll need speakers or headphones. I pre-record lectures for this course as part of the course content. So you'll need to be able to hear me. So speakers, headphones. Generally, computers come with speakers or built-in speaker at least, so that shouldn't really be a problem. You'll need a way to open and create Word documents and PDFs, the Adobe Acrobat format. So again, this is fairly standard. There will be, as we'll see, 2 papers for this course. So you will need to be able to generate a Word document or a PDF for those papers and submit it to me. I only accept Word documents and PDFs. I don't use Mac format. I don't use Pages. So it needs to be either Microsoft Word or a PDF. MS Silverlight, some of the content in Blackboard requires Microsoft Silverlight to work. So make sure you have that up to date. Also, there's some information suggesting that Mozilla Firefox works best with Blackboard. Personally, I use Chrome and I have not had any problems, but if you do have problems with whatever browser you're using, Mozilla Firefox might be a good option for you. Otherwise, if it seems to work fine, no worries. And then finally, the Respondus Lockdown browser is a browser that Blackboard uses for taking tests. There will be 2 exams in this course, and the Respondus Lockdown browser just keeps people from having multiple windows open. These are closed book, closed note exams, and so that's just to keep you on track for the test and to keep you from looking at other content. So it does require that you use that Respondus Lockdown browser. Okay, so how the course is structured, as I mentioned, this is an online course. It's entirely online. It's not a hybrid course. So this will be mediated through Blackboard, which obviously you're already on. So Blackboard is where all the course content will be. It is how I will post announcements, post content. You'll take your exams through Blackboard. You'll submit assignments through Blackboard. And we'll get into the various assignments for the course in a minute. The course is also what we call asynchronous, which means that you don't have to be online at a particular time to attend lecture or to participate in discussion. So you are on your own schedule. The course is set up week by week. So as long as you get your work done for that particular week, then you should be on track. So the asynchronous part also means that you don't have to watch lecture at a particular day. You don't have to turn in contribute to discussion on a particular day. Tests and assignments will have particular due dates, but again, those are deadlines. You can turn it in before that point if you wish. You'll see on the syllabus the schedule. So one thing is that we have Labor Day coming up, and of course Labor Day you have off, but because it's an asynchronous course, our class doesn't technically meet on Labor Day or any particular day of the week. So what I've done is I've treated Labor Day week as just a regular week, as though it were a full week. And again, because it's asynchronous, there's nothing requiring you to come in to Blackboard on Monday and look at content. So Labor Day week will be treated as a full week. As a trade-off, Thanksgiving week is completely free. I don't put any content, there won't be any assignments. So you have Thanksgiving week off. So that's the trade-off I've made. The course will be set up in modules. So every week will have its own module. And so you can see here on the left menu bar for Blackboard, we have your syllabus, but you also have this section for course content, and that's where the modules will be. So each module will have a certain set of components that will always be there. You'll have the overview and the task list. So that's what that week is about. And the task list is just your to-do list. It's what you need to do. For example, it'll say the readings that you need to complete for that week. It'll also tell you which lectures to watch. In fact, the lectures will be contained within that module along with the task list. And I do recommend that you do the readings before lectures. It's always easier to understand a lecture as it's being given if you're at least a little familiar with the content beforehand. So I do recommend that you do the readings before lecture. And of course, the lectures themselves will cover a lot of content in the book. They'll also cover some extra content. So not everything that's in lecture is in the book and vice versa. Also, for each module, for each lecture actually, I put together some practice quizzes so you can test yourself in terms of your knowledge of the course material. I don't take these for a grade. I don't grade these. You can take it as many times as you want. These are just for your benefit to test yourself and see how much you've retained. And finally, part of it's not listed in the module, it's listed under the discussion board, which as you can see is another one of your menu items in Blackboard. So the discussion board is where we'll have class discussions. And so every week I will post a couple of questions, and it is expected as part of your grade actually to participate in discussion. For these first couple of weeks, it'll be up to you as an individual to participate in discussion. I will post a question and then let everyone respond to it. So you can respond to my question with your own thoughts, or you can respond to someone else's post. I do expect everyone to be courteous, to adhere to what's called netiquette, which is just etiquette and rules of behavior for the internet. So this is something like a discussion forum. So you're expected to behave yourself and always be polite and respectful to your fellow students and to me. So that is part of what the discussion board is for, is answering the discussion questions that I will post every week that pertain to that week's topic. The other thing discussion board is good for, there's a separate forum that I've created for questions that you create. So if you have a question about class content, so maybe there was a concept we went over that you're a little fuzzy on. If you're unsure of a concept, chances are there's someone else in the class that is not as confident about it as well, so feel free to post a question for me, And if you're looking at these discussion forums, feel free to answer questions posted by their students. If you think you know the answer, or if you have a suggestion, if someone wants to know the best way to study, for example, then if you have a way that works for you, you can help them out and make a suggestion. So those are the two main components of the discussion board. That is the weekly discussion questions, which you're expected to participate in, and then the in-class questions. So questions about class content or assignments or class structure. Okay. So a word about grading, so where your grades come from. This is in the syllabus as well, but I'll mention it here. There is a midterm exam, so appropriately about halfway through the course, and that will be 25% of your grade. Again, that will be delivered through Blackboard, and as that approaches, I will give you some more information about that. You'll also have a final exam, also worth 25%, and again, that will be very similar to the midterm exam, and as the final exam approaches, I will post another video like this one saying what the exam will be like, what's expected of you, and so on. There will be two papers in this course, each one worth 20% of your grade. The first is what I call a summary paper, and this will be the first of the two, and it will be due just before the midterm exam. So the summary paper is just what it sounds like. You will pick a topic. In this case, you'll select a particular drug or class of drugs, and I'll give you a list of possible topics. And then you will summarize our understanding of the drug, how it works in the brain, how it affects behavior, what the current drug policy is towards it, what are drug treatment programs and prevention programs centered around that drug, how effective are they. Again, I'll go into more detail as this assignment approaches, but that is what the summary paper is about. The argument paper is the second one, and that will come before the final exam. So after you've had some more experience with the course, understand more about drugs, drug policy, drug treatment, things like this. And the argument paper is, again, what it sounds like. You will take a position. I will give you a list of perhaps controversial topics, at least topics with multiple sides. And then it is up to you to pick a side from one of those topics. And so you'll need to bring evidence supporting your claim. You'll need to explain why your position is the correct one, what the weakness of the other position is. And again, this is where we get into those critical thinking skills. So you're going to have to evaluate evidence, use that evidence to select one side or the other, and then write in support of your argument. And then finally, as I mentioned, discussion is also part of your grade for this course. So it's worth 10%. So for these first couple of weeks, I will post questions, and just as an individual, you need to respond to those with your thoughts. And again, this is part of your grade, so there are criteria for what makes a good response. Is it on topic, first of all? So it needs to be relevant to the question that was asked. Is it insightful? Does it add to the discussion? So you can't just say something else that someone has already said, or you can't write, oh, cool comment in response to someone else. So it needs to be substantive, and it needs to be clear. So this is also a chance to work on your writing skills to a certain extent. So that is what the discussion is for, and so it's 10% of your grade. After a couple weeks, what we'll do is I'll break you into smaller groups, so groups of between 5 and 7. And rather than everyone replying to the discussion questions as individuals, now you'll work together as a group to reply to one of the discussion questions. So you'll need to work together to craft a comment, perhaps craft an argument, again, similar to the argument paper that you'll be doing as an individual later. So the discussion groups I'll get into when we get there in a couple weeks. Accommodations. So if you have an accommodation for this course, anything that allows you more test time, if you have a visual or auditory impairment, please let me know as soon as possible by email, and I will make sure that I set up the course materials to accommodate you. Accommodations, of course, should come with a form from the disability services, So please get that to me as soon as you can, or at least let me know of your accommodation by email. Okay, that is it for our sort of broad overview of the course and welcome. So again, glad to have you for the course. I hope you're excited about taking it. I'm excited about teaching it. And yes, I will begin this week with lectures 1 and 2, where we'll go over some of our terminology regarding drugs, what drugs are, trends in drug use, broadly speaking, and the history of drug use. So I will see you later this week.